The Out of Bounds Show podcast is powered by the DeWalt tools at Ace Bolt and Screw. Visit acebolt.net for a location near you.
WRKS Pickens Jackson.
All systems go.
Live from the Whiskey 61 Lounge inside the Bank Plus studio.
This is now awarded.
Live in the studio. It's the Out of Bounds Show with Bo Bounds. Streaming live worldwide on the Out of Bounds radio app. And on your radio at ESPN 105.9.
All set? Let's go.
The Zone.
Oh, man. Somebody said it's a Monday. So I'm rolling with that. The Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. Streaming live on the Out of Bounds radio app, always powered by the Golden Moon Casino. I think that place will be kicking this week with the Neshoba County Fair. And award-winning Dancing Rabbit Golf Club. Visit dancingrabbitgolf.com, dancingrabbitgolf.com to schedule a tee time or start the process on a buddy's trip. I'm your host, Bo Bounds. I've got Blake Mania with me. We've got a good show lined up today. Two monster topics, Oklahoma and Texas. Is this going to happen? Will they move to the SEC? Can anybody pull something late in the game to pull them back? Because, as of a few days ago, they were going, and it's a done deal. And how will it look for the Southeastern Conference? Will we break it up into 4 pods or 4 divisions with 16 teams? That could be kind of cool. And how will it impact Ole Miss and Mississippi State? Is it negligible? Is it slightly better? Slightly worse as far as how difficult it is to win. You can hit us up on the Farm Bureau Insurance call-in line, 601-707-3750. Twitter handle at BoBounds, and then the text line, 601-885-3776. Manage your land with a John Deere tractor from Mississippi Ag. Like I said, I've got Blake Mania with me. How was Pelahatchie?
Oh, riveting.
Good.
Electric. Exciting.
Did you get you a second home there?
Smelled like, Mississippi high school football there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Did you pick up some jock straps? Let me ask you something. Is it a max effort Monday for you?
Yeah, at every Monday. Max effort Monday.
All right.
We're coming. Look, it's basically here.
So if you were doing clings right now, it would be
PRs. I'd be setting PRs left and right.
Okay.
This is this is 2-a-days, right? We're getting ready.
Right.
It's fall camp, as they like to call it.
Right.
We're locked and loaded, ready to go. Football season is almost upon us. It really will be. I mean, so what? Like private schools, August 13th or something like that. Like
yes, that is correct.
That's less than 3 weeks. Like we're here. So I'm locked and loaded, man.
Are you really?
Go. Yeah, I'm ready to go. Focus.
So if the question is it a max effort Monday for you?
Max effort Monday.
It is,
yeah,
right?
100%.
Okay. All right, cool. Because according to Kirby Smart and Will Muschamp, if we just get more Oklahoma drills in August, it means wins in September, October, November.
I'm gonna get the old.
But you've got to tie your cleats tighter. Sometimes you got to double jock strap, and you got to have max effort even on Monday. Are you good with that?
I'm ready to go.
Okay.
As I say, I'm going to win the Gruden's Grinder Award this season.
Oh,
I'm gonna be
wow.
ready to go. Be ready to go. Locked in.
Gruden's Grinders.
That's right.
Did he give those out when he was in Monday Night
Football?
Football?
Monday Night Football, man.
Okay.
Every Monday he'd have a Gruden's Grinder.
Man.
What a legend.
Is that awesome or what?
Yeah. Aaron Rodgers' future home.
Oh, wow.
The Las Vegas Raiders.
The Raiders. John
right.
The Gruden Grinders. I love that guy.
There we go.
That guy's thinking more Oklahoma drills.
Yes.
In August.
That's correct.
Can mean an NFL playoff appearance.
Speaking of NFL and elite quarterbacks, Deshaun Watson with a little positive PR. A little help.
By reporting?
help on the NFL. Yeah, it looks like. I mean, this situation is so odd, but it looks more and more like Deshaun Watson will be back in the NFL sooner than later.
Interesting. Players have been penalized for far less.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll see how that looks.
When you're supposed to be the face of the NFL and a young quarterback, it changes how you're handled.
So did Goodell make sure that Zeke Elliott was penalized because he and Jerry Jones had a little run in?
Maybe.
Well, let's get into that. So we've got Oklahoma and Texas looking like they're going to the SEC, and we'll have Tom Luganbill on at 8:30, and then Chris Vavini.
Yeah, Vanini.
But yeah,
with the Athletic.
With the Athletic.com. He used to be with CoachingSearch.com.
That's right.
Because we used to do that whole hit years ago. Pete Roussel, I think it was, ran it, and then he tried to get, or maybe he's still in the agent business. I'm not sure. Pete had a weird personality. But, yeah, so Chris will join us at 9:30 on the Expansion 2. I was going back and forth texting Luganbill yesterday, and I think he's going to have, he grew up on the West Coast, played quarterback in the ACC, and, of course, has been with ESPN for a long time. And he'll bring a different angle to the deal, too. If this goes, do you like it? Let me ask the listeners. Do you like Oklahoma and Texas joining the league? And then people have asked, like, who takes the hit in this? Current members, and then maybe which one out of Oklahoma and Texas? Well, I've got, here are the two programs that, in my opinion, really take a step back that haven't been able to figure it out, even without Oklahoma and Texas in the league. And that is Tennessee and A&M. I think those are the programs, two programs that, I understand Jimbo has made A&M an elite recruiter. And Tennessee is a fringe elite recruiter. But I think considering who they are and what they want to be, those two teams will be negatively impacted more than anyone else. As far as the two coming in, I think Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma takes a hit because they're a fringe. They've been able to live off Texas screwing up for the most part, although Texas did win a natty in the 2000s and play for one. And so I think Oklahoma, because they're not an elite recruiter and Texas is an elite recruiter, and I think Texas made a great hire, and I think Sark will get their stuff worked out. So I think Oklahoma as far as the new members coming in, and I think Tennessee and A&M as far as current members of the SEC. And for Tennessee, they've been in no man's land for the better part of, 13, 14, 15 years, which has been the revolving door of the head coaching job at Tennessee has cost them almost 2 decades. And then A&M's never lived up to what I think a lot of us thought that they could be or should be in the grand scheme of things. So I think that's a bad deal for Tennessee. I think it's a bad deal for A&M. It could be a push for Mississippi State, Ole Miss, and Arkansas. And if it's a push, then you're okay. It still means it's extremely difficult. But if you can break up playing, look, Georgia has yet to play at A&M. And A&M joined the league in 2012. I mean, think about that. Georgia has yet to play, never visited Texas A&M, and Auburn only plays at Florida once a decade, just to use 2 examples of how poor the conference scheduling is. Now, will they stick with 8 games? Well, I think that's probably the $100 million question. We're live in the Bank Plus studio. The show is powered by MississippiSportsMedicine.com. Want to welcome you in. and say good morning. We'll have the big board coming up next, and then the SEC Insider Hit. We're live in the Bank Plus studio. We're streaming live on the Out of Bounds radio app. The Out of Bounds Show podcast is brought to you by Boar's Head, premium meats, cheeses, and hummus. Boar's Head, compromise elsewhere.
What's on the big board?
Oh, good morning. The big board brought to you by Went McGee, the mortgage man. MortgageManMS.com. He'll shop the best rates for you. Want to say good morning. Welcome in. Good morning. Good morning. Big breaking news last week on Oklahoma and Texas and their potential move to the Southeastern Conference. And then would we break this thing into what they call 4 pods? I like it better as 4 divisions. I mean, it's NFL-style stuff, and I don't think this should surprise anyone. I think we started throwing out divisions going away last summer, Blake, on this show. Nobody else was. Yes. I wonder why we threw that out. Maybe we had some pretty good sources.
We're innovative.
Did you hear that anywhere else? You didn't. Here, Birmingham? No, you didn't. And so there was a reason why we continued to float doing away with the East and the West. And I mean really getting into it for the last 12 months. So if we do away, which we need to, right? I mean, goodness gracious. It's like the SEC East in football is a separate conference. That's no good. I mean, Georgia has never visited A&M. Yeah. We're 8 seasons in.
Alabama hadn't been to Gainesville since like 2010. 11, something like that. It's incredible.
You know, we already know that college football scheduling is bad. It has gotten better. I mean, when we were growing up, we didn't know any better, but it was not good. We have more Power 5 matchups. Look, this year, Ole Miss plays Louisville on Monday in Atlanta. Labor Day weekend, Mississippi State, week 2, plays North Carolina State. You know, for years now. Now, Larry Templeton went overboard with it, right? Jackie Sherrill takes the job. They schedule Texas home and away. Now, Sherrill went 2-0, but again, we weren't talking about this back then. What was the physicality index? And you compound that out, and did that cost you? Like Sherrill lost to Memphis in '92.
Yeah.
Does that cost you a game later because of ankles, knees, hips, and shoulders? And then, of course, Templeton scheduled a home and away with Oregon, BYU, Oklahoma State. I mean, can you imagine if they scheduled like Ole Miss? I mean, Sherrill may have found 4 to 6 more wins over the course of several years. I mean, Texas, Baylor, Oklahoma State, these are all home and homes. Yeah. Oregon, BYU. Long before it was mandated, I mean, let's just make it harder on ourselves. That was the mantra coming out of Starkville for 100 years, right? We don't want to play offense. We don't want to throw the ball. And we want to make it as hard as we can on ourselves.
There's more opportunities to run halfback right.
Yeah. I mean, remember when I was growing up, not only did Mississippi State pull Bama and LSU and Auburn, but guess who else they pulled? Them Florida Gators.
That's right.
Yeah, wasn't that fun? And so what will it look like going to NFL divisions? 4 pods, divisions, whatever.
4 of 4, right? 4 sections of 4.
And one thing we know is a kid that goes through for 4. Now, some will go through for 5. Although that may be dying a little bit. Everybody thinks they're an NFL player. But anyway, if you play for 4 years, you'll play everybody. Yep. You won't go everywhere, but you will play everybody, which I think is still awesome.
Well, you could go if they set it up to a 9-game conference schedule. You would, over a 4-year span, you'd play everyone twice and go everywhere once.
Yeah,
that would be 4 years. You would not only play every team twice, but you'd visit every school at least one time.
Not according to
if you play a 9-game schedule. Is what I'm saying.
Okay.
They have to add the 1 game.
Yeah,
and if you play a 9-game schedule.
Interesting.
9 conference, 3 non-conference.
And it goes to 36 conference games. Interesting. Okay.
You play your pod every year all the way through. So that'd be 3 games every year in your pod. And then you'd play 6 games outside your pod, 2 from each other one.
So that's if we bump to 9.
Yeah.
Or if we stay to 8, that would not be the case.
Correct.
Which is what
that's the big debate, I
Vanini's
guess.
talking about here in this article.
Yeah, the big debate would be whether we stay at 8 or go to 9.
Ole Miss and Mississippi State and Arkansas and South Carolina, teams that can actually win in the mid-tier. You want to stay at 8. But, yeah, because if you go to 9, you're going to have some years in Starkville and Oxford and Fayetteville and Columbia, both Columbias, where you go 3 and 6.
And it's not close.
and then you have 3 non-conference games where you'll have to be clean there. And that just puts you at 6 and 6. Now, on years where you can go 4 and 5, and if you go to 9 games, if you go 4 and 5 in conference, which
still pretty good,
and then you're clean in your non-conference, that puts you at 7 and 5. And then my question is, can you flip it? How many years over 5 to 10 years can you flip and go 5 and 4 in conference, stay clean out of conference,
8-4,
and win and go 8-4? Now, I will tell you this. The love affair that we have with records in college football is about to change. It's going to become more NFL. Like when Green Bay makes the playoffs at 10 and 6, that's an unbelievable. Sometimes that's an unbelievable team. When Seattle makes it at 10 and 6, that is a phenomenal football team that can win it all. So I think we've kind of celebrated 9 and 3 and 8 and 4. Not really. In college football, a little bit. Those records will mean so much more years from now. And we'll see what they want to do on the non-conference. The whole Power 5 mandate, does Sankey revisit that? But even if he does, it doesn't matter. I mean, all of our teams have locked up for the next 10, 15 years as far as all this home and away with other Power 5 teams. Yeah. So I don't know if they started adding, some kind of clause in the contracts that basically says they can get out, especially within maybe a 2-year notice. Who knows?
We saw
especially with COVID. And look at the Pac-12. I mean, they're over here. If this goes through, think about the Big Ten and the Pac-12's leadership last year. Terrible, right? They played politics.
There was no leadership
and they
in the Pac-12, yeah.
Right. And they didn't care about their student, it was all about, being politically correct and so on. So they got burnt. I mean, their parents, their student athletes were ticked. I think that you'll see this take a hit for them in both Olympic sports and the main 3 sports. But Pac-12 continues to sit on their hands. And what do you make of Penn State and the rumor that they want out of the Big Ten? And if Penn State does want out of the Big Ten,
only one spot, right?
Doesn't it have to be the ACC?
Has to be.
Okay. So the ACC's trying to put together a deal to get Notre Dame full-time in football and go grab Penn State, and they believe, and they're right, that those are then so they're on the recruiting trail too.
They're the biggest
backdoor. Everybody's backdoor recruiting, and if they can land those 2 major brands, they will not be the Southeastern Conference, but they will have added 2 wealthy, big brands that have had success that their alums care. Look, I've been to Penn State, and they care.
Yes,
they love it, and it's really amazing that they've won out in the middle of nowhere because there's no prospects around him and there's no people around Happy Valley. But if the ACC puts their foot on the gas, by the way, the Big Ten, you thought that they were going to hire the current ACC commissioner for the Big Ten. He was the Northwestern, the great school academically in Chicago. He was the Northwestern AD. Everybody wanted him as the next Big Ten commissioner. He was passed over. Now he's the ACC commissioner. What if he lands Notre Dame and Penn State, and the Big Ten sits on their hands and the Pac-12's done? This is amazing. The Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. Good morning. Welcome in. We'll do the SEC Insider Hit coming up next. And then Tom Luganbill will join us on the Modelo guest line. Lugs at 8:30 on the Modelo guest line.
The Out of Bounds Show podcast is powered by Breezy Oaks Ranch. For Mississippi-raised premium Wagyu beef and heritage pork shipped straight to your door, visit breezyoaksranch.com.
Come on.
Everyone ready?
This is the SEC Insider Hit. Presented by your local Farm Bureau Insurance agent. Go local. Go with a home team.
Well, good morning. Welcome in. How about that U.S. Olympic basketball team? I wonder if Popovich blamed Trump for the loss. Man, oh man, oh man. Well, there goes that.
They'll suckle.
They lost to France. Is Tony Parker back? Oh, goodness. Blake, you know that Tony Parker, most of our listeners may not even know who he is, but he's from France and played for the Spurs. But
Gotta know Tony Parker.
I don't think they do, actually. Tony Parker was married to Eva Longoria,
That's correct.
who I met at Chateau Marmont in L.A.
That's awesome.
In life, isn't it a small world? I mean, that's how connected I am to Tony Parker. I met his ex-wife.
It's pretty impressive.
I know. I thought so, too. Minnie Driver was about 10 feet. You remember the movie Good Will Hunting?
Yeah, duh. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, you were like 3 when it
Come
came
on.
out, so I don't know.
I mean, I don't remember the debut, but
Right.
I've seen the movie. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. That's a classic.
And she was there, too. And you know who was in Good Will Hunting? Ben Affleck and Matt Damon.
Who Ben Affleck now.
And Affleck's now dating J-Lo. So I'm
Again,
tied to all these
for the
celebrities.
second time.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow. Out of bounds, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. The SEC Insider Hit this morning is brought to you by Farm Bureau Insurance. Bundle your auto and home and save with your local Farm Bureau Insurance agent. Favorites.com. Hit Fave, F-A-V-E, favorites.com. Get a quote in 4 minutes or less. 105.9 The Zone ESPN. I've got Blake Mania with me. Blake made a road trip to Pelahatchie this weekend. He's going to tell us more and more about that throughout the show.
There's nothing else.
We're looking forward to that. And circled around, went to Hattiesburg. Should have gone to El Reo. Visited Robert St. John's new Tex-Mex place. So you were a road trip. Oh, I went to Starkville for Friday night, but I came home Sunday.
Yeah, you.
Saturday. What am I talking about?
Did you eat at Taste?
I did. I ate at Taste on Friday night. Yeah.
So you were hobnobbing with the national championship trophy.
Well, yeah, that was there on Sunday. I'm sure I will be hobnobbing at some point with the Natty trophy. But anyway, point is, Taste is a really good place to go. But yeah, I came back on Saturday, and then Sunday, Wendy and I hit brunch at Bravo. We're in this, we're on this breakfast pizza run at Bravo for brunch. Delicious. And so I had a good food weekend.
That is good.
I stopped in at Sal and Mookie's on Friday before we left to go to Starkville.
I want some of their wings.
And I had the pizza and hung out with Patrick a little bit. And then, Friday night was Taste. We got some to-go wings from some place called Two Brothers.
What's that?
Yeah. And then Sunday morning was Bravo. And then we did a little floating in the water. So it was good. While you were taking your road trip to South Mississippi.
There you go.
Did you see any recruits? Did you do any recruiting? Stop in like McGee, Mendenhall?
Come on now. I can't talk about my brown bagging.
Mount Olive? I mean, there's all sorts of places that
talk
produce
about that, yeah.
some pretty phenomenal athletes where you were trucking up and down.
Yeah.
Oak Grove?
I was funneling talent to Mike and the crew up in Starkville. That's it. No, if I was going to be...
If you were going to be a bagman,
if I was going to be a bagman, the obvious thing would be to not be a state. Like, you have to craft your persona carefully. So, like, obviously people know I went to Mississippi State. So my trick would be that I'd be like an LSU bag man, That way I can still make money and cheer for State. Because
it would kind of be like espionage.
Yeah, it's what you have to do because everyone would assume if I'm brown bagging, it's for one school, right?
Right.
It's like why people assume the next show brown bags for the other school. Like that's how this works. Everyone knows affiliations, so you got to be smart with it.
Right.
Like you can't run a business that's like got the logo of the school you're brown bagging for plastered all over the windows. That tends to come back and bite you.
Okay, so you made the trip down 49 and back.
Yeah. I spent 4 hours going to Central South Mississippi and found more wide receiver talent than Mullen's staff did in 9 years.
Shots fired on Billy Gonzalez. Okay, so you just want to go all in.
Max
this morning.
effort Monday.
It is a max effort Monday for you.
I'm gonna have to get Paul to make a drop for that. Just
Done.
Behind the scenes, on the air stuff for you guys.
Well, go ahead and do it.
A little look into radio world.
There's another crew that copies everything we do.
It's accurate.
So go ahead and get that liner from Paul. Out of Bounds brought to you by Farm Bureau Insurance, 601-707-3750. We're live in the Bank Plus studio. If you'd like to hit us up with a text, 601-885-3776. I've got some audio that I want to get into. I want to switch gears for a second. We'll get back into Oklahoma. I mean, we're going to do two 23-minute interviews on Oklahoma and Texas to the SEC. And if it happens, how that will look. I think it will, unless somebody's going to, pull something. Well, I mean, the SEC did it, so why wouldn't the Big 12 or someone else try to counter it, when everybody's asleep, so to speak. But Oklahoma and Texas to the SEC, I'm all for. I love it. One, selfishly, I think it's great for the show. Two, I think if it lines up right, it will be a push for MSU and Ole Miss in what is already the most difficult scheduling of any other division or conference in college football. So even if it's just a hair, I mean, slightly just gives you a little bit of a reprieve and eases up a little bit. That goes a long way because that could be a half game type deal, depending on how we run the numbers over 4 to 5 to 6 years. And so when you look at that, and look, it's all going to be also predicated on how we break out the pods or the divisions into 4 teams, right? 16 teams, 4 times 4. We know the drill there. And how it look. Do you pull A&M or do you pull Arkansas?
Oh.
Because if they're going to put Ole Miss, Mississippi State, and LSU in a pod, if that's the case, or again, this is going to look like the NFC South, the AFC East, the NFC West, whatever. If it is MSU, Ole Miss, and LSU, if you can get Arkansas in that pod and not A&M,
big difference.
It's a big difference.
Yeah.
It is a big. Well, I say that
it's a pretty big.
It's
difference.
A pretty big swing. Although you're capable of beating A&M at home,
but you're talking about a number 8 recruiter versus a number 28 recruiter.
Yeah,
that's a large difference.
20. I think Pittman will move them back where they were at one point, but you are exactly right. Somewhere between 23 and 28. And
when we
one that has now been moved into almost the top 5 with the way that Jimbo's big game hunting. I mean, he just walked in the state of Mississippi 2 years ago and signed the number 1 defensive tackle.
Yeah, and when we discuss physicality index and like the compounding year over year, how you face off against somebody, you'd rather play Arkansas over a 4-year stretch than A&M all day every day because the odds are
no doubt.
You just get more wins.
No doubt. Yeah, even if it's one more.
Even
one more
3-1
versus
2-2.
Huge.
Yeah, that's massive.
So, all right, fair enough.
I'm looking for that Mississippi State.
And the teams that I think could take the biggest hit from this is Tennessee and A&M.
Yeah.
Because they've really never lived up to what they think they are other than Tennessee's 98 national championship. And then the team that I think that could take a step back would be coming in, it wouldn't be Texas, believe it or not. And I know Oklahoma's been a better program consistently. They both they both have one title. Well, Oklahoma got theirs in 2000.
Yeah.
So it's technically in the but even though Oklahoma has 6 straight Big 12 championships, which really means nothing, I think Oklahoma could take a slight step back because they recruit between 10 and 15. And just, when Texas is run right, they're going to recruit in the top 10. The Out of Bounds Show is brought to you by Farm Bureau Insurance. Go local, go with the home team. I want to switch gears here. We talk a lot about Jerry Jones, and even more so now that Dak Prescott is the quarterback of the Star and the Dallas Cowboys. And obviously he's had an amazing career, even with Jerry screwing this up, for not just the years that Dak was there, but the years that Romo was there. I mean, 27 years without an NFC championship appearance 26 years without an NFC championship appearance is awful. I mean, the Jacksonville Jaguars have played in the AFC champion. I mean, seriously, the Chicago Bears, who have yet to really embrace the forward pass, have played in more than one NFC championship game and in a Super Bowl since Jerry screwed this up with Jimmy Johnson. And if you've listened to this show, I think you could argue that Jimmy Johnson's one of the top 5 coaches of all time. You got Belichick, you got Saban. Some of you would put Walsh in there and Bear Bryant, whatever. You would go back and forth, regardless of division. But if we want to split it up, you could argue Jimmy was one of the best at the collegiate level and one of the best at the NFL level. He will be going into the Hall of Fame. Is it next week, Blake?
Yeah, I believe that's correct.
Okay. Because Dak and the Cowboys play. Did you tell me the Steelers?
The Steelers, that's right.
Dak and the Cowboys play in the Hall of Fame game this year. Jimmy Johnson will be going into the Hall of Fame. There's no question he's a Hall of Famer. Well, Jerry has now, after wasting 26 years of his life, now he's built extraordinary wealth, right? I mean, he's worth billions. Probably every bit of $15 billion.
Yeah, but it can't buy him the one thing he wants more than anything.
That's right. He was a young man. He was 50 years old. No, sorry.
Younger than that,
Younger
right?
than No. I think I'm close. Somewhere around 48, 49, 50 when they last won it.
Oh,
with Barry Switzer.
93?
No,
4?
95 with Switzer.
Yeah.
Obviously, Jimmy grabbed 2 prior to leaving. And now Jerry is talking about I guess he's letting his guard down. I mean, we know the ego there, right? And he's acknowledging that he screwed up. But I want the 40-second clip, Blake, because this is so good. This is him talking about the Jimmy Johnson, Jerry Jones relationship. Here we go.
Barry Switzer came in the office, and Jimmy had just left. And so Barry came down from Norman, Oklahoma to talk about getting the job. And he comes in and he said, "Where's Jimmy?" Now, Barry had coached us both. He said, "Where's Jimmy?" And I said, "Jimmy's gone." He said, "Well, that's not right. Get him in here." I said, "Where's Jimmy?" I said, "Barry, Jimmy's gone. We're sitting here talking about you being the coach." I said, "What in the world are you so anxious to talk to Jimmy about?" He said, "I just wanted to get both you little assholes on this couch and ask you both, how could you this up?"
That is fantastic.
That's incredible.
That's an audio bite, by the way, brought to you by the Charbroiled Oyster, speaking of bites, at Drago's Seafood Restaurant and Oyster Bar. What'd you think about that, Blake? So Jerry, almost 30 years later, is now starting to open up about how he screwed up the Jimmy Johnson, Jerry Jones potential dynasty, if you will.
Yeah. Because you wonder how long they could have kept that thing going.
Right.
When it comes to team architects, it's hard to argue that there's a better architect than Jimmy Johnson.
And Jimmy was so talented at evaluating.
That's what I'm saying.
Players.
Like, his ability to find the specific player with the specific traits for what he wanted to do.
Exactly.
Was because you didn't have to be. There was a little bit of a money ball. Like, did he go for the best player at certain things? Of course, obviously.
Yeah.
But there was a little bit of a money ball approach to things where he said, I know that if you have this skill trait, I can put you in this position on the field and we can be successful regardless of what your quote unquote position is.
Right.
Right. And so his ability to take talent and put it where it was supposed to be was innovative for its era. You know, we see it all
True.
the time now.
He was an innovator.
But his architectural ability when it came to putting players in certain positions was elite. And yet Jerry, I should say, walked him out the door.
Walked him out the door.
He had at least 5 to 6 years of dominance left, you would think, if not more.
You would think so, and I don't think Elway would have, it would have been tough for Favre. I know he got one after that. Steve Young and the 49ers and George Seifert did their thing after that. Elway goes back to back because one of those games was beating Brett Favre in the Super Bowl. There's a lot of what would have happened. Look, Barry Switzer is a phenomenal coach, but in his last year with the Dallas Cowboys, and I understand also they got old in the two. Okay, I get that. But you kind of ask, would Jimmy have rebooted them once again? Remember when they won it? First time around, they were the youngest team in the league. If you don't think he is a great coach, youth usually doesn't play on your side on Friday nights, Saturdays, or Sundays, okay? If you just thought Jimmy Johnson was a great coach, they were the youngest team in the league, basically made up of a bunch of 24-year-olds, okay? And this is before the training that we have today. I mean, now you send kids, even at State and Ole Miss. I mean, Laramie Tunsil was ready to go. Chris Jones was ready to go as true juniors. It wasn't like that when Jimmy was the training from 6 years old up wasn't like that when Jimmy was drafting players out of college in 1990 with the Cowboys, in 91, in 92. You didn't have the same athlete. You had super athletes for that time, but you didn't have the refined training that you have now for all these kids who are playing 100 times more games than you and I did and going through 100 times more practices, many of those specialized to fit a certain skill within that sport. That wasn't happening. So Jimmy does this prior to free agency because, Reggie White doesn't leave the Philadelphia Eagles to go to the Green Bay Packers until, I think, 93. So Jimmy's already up and running in Dallas. He's already done the Herschel trade, and he's already drafted Steve Walsh, which Troy Aikman didn't like, but then flips Walsh for all these players, who was not a good NFL QB. But Blake makes a good point. How many more could Jimmy, had he stayed another 10 years in Dallas? And I don't think Jimmy was ever going to be a lifer. He hung it up in 99. He has had to me, you could make this argument back and forth, but boy, you just make a strong argument that Jimmy's had a better life than Belichick, Saban, even though they're accomplished and super rich. But this guy checked out in 99, started doing TV and corporate speaking.
What a gig, dude.
And instead of making, let's just say Jimmy Johnson's going to make $2.5 million this year. But he gets to hang out on the water at his house or on his boat.
Golf every day and does nothing.
He's boating, he's fishing.
And he still gets to flash his Super Bowl ring when he sits on Fox.
That's good.
NFL.
Absolutely.
He floats that sucker out there every day, and they make a big deal out of him, doing it and stuff.
Now,
so
for our listeners, Jerry and Jimmy have somewhat reconciled, right? Or
yeah, they have.
But
they've reconciled
to the extent. They're not buddies, but Jerry Jones reached out to him. Dallas has two players in Jimmy Johnson going into the Hall of Fame. And Jerry wants to do a big party with all three of them, I guess in Canton or Dallas before they leave or whatever. Canton, Ohio, for our listeners. Y'all know that the Pro Football Hall of Fame's there. And so maybe that's where this party's going to be on Thursday or Friday night.
It's where
Who
they
knows?
play their Hall of Fame game.
Sure.
So like the Steelers-Cowboys game will be there.
And maybe Jerry, rents out something and does something really, really cool. He loves to spend money and throw big parties. He does it in Dallas.
Exactly.
He does it on his yacht, and he does it wherever he wants. But that's one of the biggest breakups in the history of sports, considering both men were very, very young then.
And the success level that they were operating at. They didn't break up because something went south.
And they were in the prime of their career. I take that back. Jerry, business-wise, is still in the prime of his career. But they were in the really, prime of their career.
Yes.
In their late 40s.
And it's just a legacy-writing decision by both. Well, I mean, the decision was Jerry's, but it was a legacy-affecting decision by Jerry, and it affected both guys, obviously. Jimmy was able to still kind of do, like, Jimmy's legacy was already still somewhat written for the most part, but what could have been?
What could have been? And you know what? One more Super Bowl, like, even if it would have just been, if you have 3 Super Bowls, it's just a different
But the way
deal.
they were operating and what they had, even though there was still talent in the league around them, you almost feel like they wouldn't have been Belichickian, Brady-like. I don't think they get to, like, number 6, but, 4 doesn't seem out of the question, right? If he coaches till 99 in Dallas, even if he just retires in 99, it's not out of the realm of easy possibility that they win 2 more.
Yeah.
And that would, like you said, you win 4 championships in 9 years. That's dynastic by any stretch of the imagination.
It is. Good grief. So Jimmy Johnson will be going into the Hall of Fame along with Peyton Manning and Charles Woodson and Calvin Johnson and some other really big names. Peyton leads the way. Jimmy Johnson. I mean, that's just incredible. But Jerry is now, he hired people like Dave Campo. I mean, good grief.
Wade Phillips.
I mean, I don't know if I'd let Campo coach a 7-on-7 team here. Wade Phillips. Wade Phillips. He's
great DC,
son of a bum on Twitter, I think.
Terrible head coach, great defensive coordinator.
Dave Campo.
Yeah.
Okay. Wade Phillips.
And the infamous
Jason Garrett, Bill Parcells, and I may be missing one.
Yeah.
Barry Switzer went 6-10 his last year in Dallas.
It's incredible.
Wow. Barry Switzer's a great coach, by the way.
Yeah.
Won 3 national championships at Oklahoma.
Things went south, man.
Yeah. That was it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was over. In 96,
Yep.
They lost to the Carolina Panthers and Wesley Walls.
Woof.
And Kerry Collins, who used to eat at Shapley's, which is now Kessler Prime when I was a bartender.
Yeah.
Of course, Wesley's been on the show. He's in the Mississippi Sports Hall of Fame. They lost to the Carolina Panthers in the NFC divisional round.
Yep.
Like the year before.
They've never looked back.
And then in 97 with Barry, which that was a disappointing year in 96.
Yeah.
Divisional round to the Panthers. And then in 97, they went 6-10.
Yeah.
Barry Switzer with the Dallas Cowboys.
It was all over.
And that was it for Troy Aikman. I mean, that was literally it.
That was it for Jerry Jones.
Yeah. That's it. Boom. That's now 20.
Sorry. In snaps this year.
26 years.
Steve Palazzolo told you we're going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Yeah. And then he had Parcells for a couple of years. But other than that, and he stuck with Jason Garrett for a decade. And yet the guy's worth probably, I think, every bit of $15 billion. Good grief. So brilliant bit. Oh, and Dave Weinstadt talked about that over the weekend, Blake, who coached under Jimmy Johnson. I mean, he said Jerry, as far as on the business side, incredible. The show is brought to you by Farm Bureau Insurance. Hit favorites.com and save on your auto and home.